The 2024 preseason is officially done and dusted with all 9 Community Series games come to an end. So what can we get out of these games? Now, my argument is kind of on the fence when it comes to whichever side of the spectrum that you sit on, with some thinking that you can get a whole lot out of preseason games. Some people think you can get nothing, whereas my answer is purely and simply fence sitting. I think you can get bits and pieces, and for me, it's more players, structure, and position. The results don't really matter that much, although that's pretty easy to say when your team lost by 9.5 goals. So here are my quick fire takeaways from every game of the 2024 AAMI Community Series. Let's go. Now, for the Tigers, they're going to be all about how perfect they can be in transition, especially in the early part of the season while they work under Adam Uze's new system, because there were times on transition where they just had the pies on toast. Now, yes, inaccurate goal kicking is going to play that part. We know that. But if they were turning the ball over in transition, no one really wanted to work back defensively at all, which is a bit of a problem. So there is a little part of me that's glad that they kicked so inaccurately, because they weren't going to get out of jail, I think, from anyone's standpoint when it came to the fact that they had to go. Jaden Short won a best and fairest, or at least had his career best season in 2020 as a pure halfback flanker. It's good to see that Adam Uze is actually playing him in that spot, and I think that Shea Bolton, whether Tom Lynch is there or not, needs to do whatever he can to kick 50 goals in a year and just stay out of the centre bounce. He just does. Richmond need to find a way to score. He's the one that can do it the most with Tom Lynch not in the side, because even without him on the weekend, their inside 50 tall forward entries outside of Samson Ryan at times, yeah, not good. And for the Pies, the fact that they didn't go and get a tall forward in the offseason, they won the flag, they didn't really need to, but it just goes to show how important Mason Cox is going to be in their back-to-back hopes. 19 hitouts on the weekend. I think he had 11 disposals, of which 10 of them he took a mark. 3 of them were contested. If he is going to be their target down the line, in order for him to not get outmarked, he's going to be, of course, the highest priority. But 11 disposals, 10 marks is already a freakishly good way to kickstart your season. But if he goes down, I think Collingwood are in more trouble than they realise. Although I really did like a lot of their game. Thought Finlay McRae was awesome when he came onto the ground. I don't think Ash Johnson or Reef McInnes impressed me a whole lot. But, you know, the Pies are going to be fine. They're going to be fine. It was pretty clear pretty early into this game that Carlton didn't really give a shit. They just didn't want to get injured. But I think I've said this before. I hope it was actually on this channel and not a collab. I might have done it maybe talking to Pommy and Oz, maybe, who, if you haven't checked out, go and check out. Carlton can't win the flag without Jacob Wiedering. Straight up. That was my takeaway. I'm a bigger fan of Brodie Kemp than Kane Corns is. I've talked about how much that I do enjoy Kane as a media person. He's got the Brodie Kemp rhetoric wrong. Brodie Kemp's a good player, but Mitch McGovern and Lockie Young, or Lewis Young, I keep always forgetting which one's at Carlton. I think it's Lewis who's at Carlton. Didn't look great. Melbourne took 20 marks inside 50, and Carlton didn't really care. So think of it what you will. I'm not overreacting to this game if I'm a Carlton fan, but no Wiedering, no Walsh. They're, of course, not going to be at their best, and I did like Harry Mackay's game. Yes, he had a shock and set shot, but he still kicked 3 goals, 1. We don't have to focus on the one bad sort of set shot kick that he had there, but for the Blues, simply put, if their spine is not in working order, their premiership hopes, done. The D's, they laid 60 tackles in this game. They cared so much more than Carlton did in this game, and their structure under Simon Goodwin is going to lead them in good stead. Max Gawn is just Max Gawn. I know that I've preached that I want Rowan Marshall to be an All-Australian this year, or I think he's going to be the All-Australian ruckman this year, but if every ruckman in the competition, and I know it doesn't work like this, but if every single one of them played 23 games, it's Max Gawn and then Flemington straight before we get into anyone else, and he's just extraordinary. And if you said to me, if I had to build one team to win a premiership this season, and I could have one player, I'd almost tell you Max is number 1. And that's not just because of a preseason game, by the way. But the leadership, his ability, it's clear that he just needs to be the number 1 guy and everyone else get out of his way when it comes to the big ruck stocks. He's just a freak. And we love him. Petrarca did some nice things. Jack Viney, 100% deserving of a spot in my all underrated midfield this year. He was fantastic, and I really like the game of Tom Sparrow as well. So, a few of the Demons boys getting themselves warmed up. But look, like Carlton, if Stephen May goes down, I don't think Melbourne can win the flag either. So, there you go. But they clearly wanted to send a message that they were ready to go for this year in this game, and they did that. The Swans lost by the least amount of points that I had the most concern over. So the Taylor Adams injury, we know Luke Parker's broken his arm, we know Callum Mills's injury there, and that's going to help, the fantasy players, if you will, with guys like James Jordan and these guys. But it's Chad Warner right now who's kind of got the spotlight on him that you need to get into that really elite territory and help Errol Goulden out. If Sydney are going to have any chance, I think, of even making the 8. I've really liked what I've seen from Logan McDonald for the entirety of the off-season. I did not like the way Sydney moved the ball at all in this game, but again, pre-season game, I'm not really going to sit here and go, they were fighting for premiership points, and I'm really, really concerned. But the way that Sydney moved the ball, looking at their injury list, nobody there, which probably should help them. It helped the Hawks, obviously, when he left there, and even games where he was on Hawthorn's list and he wasn't there. The forward line can flourish. But I've got to be honest, I'm a little bit less on the Swans than I was 24 hours before this game began. That's just the truth. Always interesting to know who is a free agent this year, because Hugh McCluggage is going to be paid a shitload of money by someone. Now, I personally believe that if Collingwood don't get Bailey Smith, they're going to throw everything they can at Hugh McCluggage. I think they're Collingwood's 2 trade priorities in this off-season, now that Ben King has signed that 2-year deal with the Suns. But 31 disposals in this game, and you just know that he is just fanging out some best form. I really hope we get to see the development of guys like Jasper Fletcher, who we saw have a really good back end of last year in his rookie season, his debut season. But I hope we really get a breakout from Kai Lohman as well, a guy who maybe I didn't give enough respect for in his draft year. Taken a little bit to come on, but he looks fit, he looks healthy. The way he was moving across that entire front half looked really good, and it is clear that the high half forward is going to be in vogue in 2023, and with the likes of Bailey and Rayner, who might be more prominent even working back defensively, Lohman as that kind of pain-in-the-ass small could be a genuine weapon for Brisbane this year, and I hope that he can be, because he's a talent. For the Giants, Tom Green-Brownlow season's begun. 31 touches, 9 score involvements, 9 clearances, just doing what he does best, and he might not have even been the best T Green on the ground, with Toby kicking 3 goals, 3, and looking like he was in second gear for the majority of this game, which was extraordinary. But I'm always a lover of guys who... I think we're really impatient when it comes to how quickly a draftee should come on, and I do blame Sam Walsh for that. I do blame Matty Rao for that before he did his shoulder in that first season. I blame Nick Dacos for that. I blame Harry Sheasel for that a little bit. So when Aaron Cadman had the year that he had last year and probably got labelled a bust by some people, which I thought was way too prematurely, it was really good to see him have a bigger impact, I think, than the stat sheet suggested, and hopefully there is room for him in that Giants forward line, especially now that 2002 Slim Shady, who wears number 27 and is apparently called Harry Himmelberg, but that is Marshall Mathers, as far as I'm concerned, at centre-half back for the Giants. There can definitely be a spot there for Cadman if he plays that second ruck, pseudo centre-half forward role, swapping out with Kieran Briggs when he needs a rest. I liked what I saw from the number 1 pick. For the Suns, Touk Miller is the best Gold Coast midfielder, and it's not even close. Raul Anderson had a really good year last year, don't get me wrong, and he's a star. Not downplaying that at all. But if you don't think Touk Miller is their number 1 mid, well, a pre-season game should bloody change your mind with over 30 disposals for the great man. Alex Sexton looked unreal at half-back, used the ball so well, took 11 marks for those that are in the fantasy. He is going to be a guy to look out for, but I also thought that they showed some nice composure at times in that back half, did the Suns. It was pretty clear that they were just trying a few things at different times. They weren't taking this game all too seriously, but a guy that I kind of want to put the spotlight on, and I know this is going to sound hypocritical because I've talked about high draft picks that need to be given more time. I think this guy is nearly out of time. I think Jack Lukosius needs to become a star this year. Jed Walters got the collarbone. He could genuinely be that third tall forward. He can kick the ball 60 on a good day. Kicked 4 in this game. I think he's in for a breakout season. If there's a smoky that I could pick to kick 50 plus this year, I reckon it's him. Is this the earliest of early Crows? Probably. Don't care. In my one positive AFL prediction for each club video, my Geelong one was that this was the year of Max Holmes. And what does he do in a competitive hit-out? 29 disposals at 82%. Yes, please. Thank you very much. And if Max gets injured in round one, Cats fans, please do not come for me. I'm not jinxing it, but geez, he looked good. I really liked what Ollie Dempsey did. I thought Tanner Bruin had some nice moments in this game as well. But overall, good comeback by the Cats, I suppose. Did the Bombers put the Q in the rack? That'll be probably more for Bombers fans to decide than I at this point in time. But nothing's really changed about the Cats. We're going to be looking forward to seeing their youngsters. Jai Clark, another one who I'm looking forward to seeing. Toby Conway in the ruck this year. I think he can go to another level than what he's already produced so far, and I really like what I see there. Their midfield's going to be a worry. I think their defense is going to be fine. There are going to be days where they kick 130 points. There are going to be days where they kick 50. And for St Kilda's case, when it comes to round one, hopefully there's some round one jitters in there, but you're going to be able to beat the Cats if you can get on top in the midfield and make them pay on turnover. Essendon didn't really do that. They probably didn't need to because it's a preseason game. For the Bombers, again, when you give up the lead that they had early, and it's kind of difficult to know what to make of it, but I thought Nick Martin's new role is a tick. Xavier Dersma, who nearly made my all-underrated team, I thought was good as well, really good. Could be an underrated pickup this year. I bloody hope that he is. Good news about Jordan Ridley, that quad strain is not going to be anywhere near as bad as what some people were saying that it could be, especially after his contract extension. No one likes seeing that. But also, Elijah Sardis was good. Will Setterfield was good. It seems to be an audition for that third permanent midfield spot. And considering Sam Durham, who was so good on a wing last year, also is gunning for that third midfield spot behind Merritt and Parrish. Having depth is good, but the Bombers are going to need to make a decision relatively quickly, I think. I don't think it's going to affect them too much against the Hawks for reasons I'll talk about when we get to that game. But they've still got some questions to answer. But another tick for mine to finish it with the Bombers was Andy McGrath. 31 disposals, and I think a player that is a bit too maligned in my eyes by Bombers fans. So good to see him get the footy as well. For Port, I mean, when you play blokes in their right positions, holy shit, Ollie Wines is an inside midfielder. Well, bugger me. Who would have thought? He only won a Brownlow there, Ken. My goodness. Looked awesome, and we love that. I think the way that Port Adelaide are going to want to beat teams this year is to set up effectively a rebounding wall in their forward half, effectively like they did last year, and to hopefully stop the turnover battle in the middle of the ground to avoid Radicalea and Zerk Thatcher, as well as Alira, Trent McKenzie, these guys, getting caught out in mass one-on-one scenarios in space. And the way that they're doing that is with guys like Dan Houston, Kane Farrell, even Connor Rozee, who is a beautiful kick, and Ryan Burton, who was awesome in this game as well, are clearly going to be hanging onto the footy and using that laser-like precision in order to cut teams up. Will it work? I kind of think that it might. Now, of course, I'm not expecting Port to go 23-0 or any other club, so just calm down. But I feel like the more and more we're getting towards that round 0, round 1 space, I think the more that I'm buying into Port a little bit, and I liked what I saw from some youngsters as well. Jackson Mead, Jace Burgoyne, Jed McEntee, who I don't really think is as young as maybe I think that he is. I know he was a mid-season recruit, but he's got a burst of energy as well. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're a Port Adelaide fan and you're not happy at the moment, I don't know what to tell you. Freo, Hayden Young, as a midfielder, huge tick. Caleb Sarong is a superstar that doesn't get the credit he deserves in Victoria. I don't think Justin Longmuir is going to be there by the end of the season, and I still have no clue where Freo are at, and this game did nothing to convince me otherwise. So there you go. What game's next? For the Crows, they ticked every box. I mean, when you have West Coast as a preseason game, and I do mean this with all due respect, West Coast fans, I'm not the one that's going to be potting you at all. You're young, you're developing, that's fine. But I knew that no matter what Adelaide did here, giving, a lot of ticks away is going to be well, so they should have. They only played West Coast, which is, to me, still the stupidest thing ever. It's still AFL. There are still so many things that can go right and can go wrong for you that you've still got to get a result. Right, no one beat West Coast by 100 points until Hawthorn did, and then Hawthorn got criticised for doing it because they should have done it, even though West Coast, I think, were higher on the ladder at that point. Ridiculous, right? But their third midfielder is still a problem. Crouch was good, Sam Berry was very good, but I still think they're a bit one-paced in that midfield. But I will say this, though, their youth will decide their destiny more than their experienced players. And if there's one guy in the competition that I could bet right now will be a multiple All-Australian that no one else is talking about, it's Max Michelani. I know he was talked about last year, don't get me wrong, but with the love affair of the Victorian guys, you know, your Dacosses, your Sheasels, these kind of guys, he gets forgotten in the off-season. That kid's going to be a 2 or 3 time All-Australian by the time he retires. Holy shit, he's good. Not great yet, but my God, he's going to get there quickly. And for the Eagles, not a hell of a lot I can say. They had moments of good play. Darling was good in the second quarter, but as far as I'm concerned, Harley Reid, tick. Elliot Yeo, tick. Like what I saw from Luke Edwards. And we'll see how they go in round 1. Sorry, Eagles fans, but I'm not going to sit here and potshot you. But I'm also not going to sit here and give out information that I don't think is true. So I'm kind of at those 3, and then we move on. The Hawks, let's start with the positives. Cam Mackenzie and Henry Hustwaite have now gone ahead of the older Josh Ward in that midfield battle, and I kind of can't help but think about Hawthorn's next premiership midfield of looking like Newcombe and Day, tick, tick. And you need to have some sort of midfield rotation, but I think Connor McDonald, I don't think he's a full-time, third midfielder, but I think he can be a part of the rotation. Hustwaite and Mackenzie can be a part of that rotation. So what does that mean for Jimmy Worpel? And what does that mean for Connor Nash? Now, Connor Nash is a free agent this year, and I would be stunned if we kept him, to be honest. This recent run of form might mean that another club overpays for him and we can get some nice compensation. Lord knows the Hawks could have it because we've got pick 19 for Buddy for a perfect AFL system. But, this midfield battle for the Hawks is going to be interesting. But Damien Barrett was wrong about the Hawks tanking. I don't care what he thinks that we lost less games. It doesn't mean we were tanking. But he was so wrong about Jimmy Blank's injury derailing the season. It's not the fact that it was Blank himself, but what he represents structurally. Aaron Norton and Jamari Ugle-Hagan kicked 8-4 between them and took 12 marks. Hawthorn are screwed against 2-pronged forwards, and if you look at the fixture, there's a lot of them. So I hope the offense can turn it on really quickly because we really struggled to do it outside of one quarter on the weekend. So, yeah, that round 1 game against Essendon 2 weeks ago, I couldn't have been more optimistic. Today, I'm struggling. But, so whoever put together Hawthorn's best 22 at Fox Footy, do you know who Connor McDonald is yet? Because if you don't, you shouldn't have a job. Look, the Doggies turned it on when they needed to. Riley Sanders is going to be a star. I feel bad for the Dogs a little bit because they're probably the only team in the entire competition, in the entire community series that we learned nothing about at all. Bont and Libba are still really good. The kid they drafted at pick 6 looks a star. That's it. James Harms could be a good pickup. He was pretty solid. Next, the Saints. Darcy Wilson looks every bit as good as advertised, which we liked. But the pickup at the Saints that is going to be the most underrated this year, I think, is Riley Bonner. Jeez, he looked good. 30 disposals in this one. I think this win was more important than more people realise at St Kilda, because if you're a buyer of St Kilda stock, of which I am, or whether you're not convinced about the Saints this year, what both of those groups could have had in common was if they lost to North in this game, is they would have been the pot shot of the weekend. So the fact that they kicked the last 3, they kicked away from the Roos, I thought was more important than maybe we sort of give credit for, but they did what they had to do. And the stickman jumper is pretty good, and Jimmy Webster is a moron, and I hope he misses 2 months. Yeah, North's kids are going to be fine, but they're going to be weighed down by a mid-group of middle-aged players, as in not veterans, not the youngsters, that I think might be to their detriment, to be honest. But McKercher was pretty good. Liked what I saw from Dersma, even though he was quiet outside of kicking a couple of goals. But Zach Fisher down back, tick. Harry Sheasel is, well, I don't want to say the real deal, because he was the real deal last year, but any sort of scenario for second-year Blues, I think, is out the window. LDU did what he needed to do. If North have got their best 26 available, they're going to scare the shit out of some teams. I still think they're bottom 4, but I think they could be the best of those bottom 4 sides. North Melbourne finishing higher than Hawthorn this year is a real thing. And Hawthorn fans are going to hate me for that, but right now it's true. Both backlines stink, but at least theirs is somewhat healthier. And that's terrifying. And they've got a superstar mid. Jai's not a superstar yet. Will Day's injured. LDU, if everyone's healthy and on the park, is better than any Hawthorn midfielder. And Nick Larkey is better than any Hawthorn tall forward. I hate it, but it's a real thing. So, what do you guys think about the Community Series? Are you just washing it away? Doesn't matter, one final hit out, get the cobwebs out and bring on round 0? Or did you take some things away from your club or maybe your opponent when you were watching your team? Comment below, let me know. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. You can also follow me on TikTok at Daz Talks Footy and Daz Talks Cricket, which I'll be uploading hopefully soon at the time of recording, sort of my review of Australia's dominant test win over New Zealand. Cam Green, my man, you absolute superstar. But I'll tell you who else is a superstar, you who's watching this video at the moment. I hope you've enjoyed your Monday. If you're back to work this week or you're working through, hope it's going fantastic. I'm going to have my season predictions dropping on Wednesday night before we get started with round 0. And then, guys, after round 0, Sunday evening, after the footy, look at us go live streaming to dissect everything in a big round 0. Sunday, 7:30. Look at us go. Hope to see you there. I'm going to stop with the ending now. Blah. See you guys.